My arranged marriage husband thinks I cheated on him and won't speak to me anymore. My husband and I have been together for 7 years now. I got engaged to him at 17 and married a year later. I was really lucky in that he was a very kind and patient guy. I had never been in a relationship before, and obviously at 18 I didn't know how to be a partner. But over time I had learned, and we became closer and fell in love. Things were great for 5 years, and then when I graduated college we moved states. The move affected me a lot. I had become really depressed and demotivated. I stopped cooking, cleaning, going to the gym, waking up on time, etc. He was really patient with me and did all he could to support me emotionally, but I wasn't improving. Eventually, he began feeling frustrated and alone in the relationship. I tried as hard as I could to be the partner he needed, but I just couldn't do it consistently. This ended up putting him in a state of depression as well. Earlier this year he asked we have an open relationship. We fought about this for a while, and when I was out of town he had gone on a date with a girl I told him I didn't want him to see. He told me himself after the fact and I felt betrayed. I made a Tinder account out of spite, but after a week decided that it wasn't worth it to be petty and that all I wanted was to repair our relationship. After much debating and counseling, we agreed to close our relationship. Earlier this month, my husband starts pushing for an open relationship again. When I asked why he brings this up after we've discussed this before, he says that it's because he no longer feels attracted to me. He told me my depression had caused me to gain weight, I didn't shower as often or shave, and I never did my hair or makeup anymore. This was obviously crushing to hear. I told him that I would put more effort into my appearance, but he told me that he hadn't enjoyed intimate with me for the last 5 years and would need another woman to bring back that desire. I couldn't handle hearing this. 2 months ago, a guy I had matched with on Tinder many months ago reaches out to me for weed. I am not a dealer, but I sell/share with friends, which he knew. I told him that I wasn't on the apps anymore and hadn't ever met up with anyone on there, so I wasn't really comfortable and didn't want him to get the wrong idea. Plus, for all I know he could report me to the police. He reassures me he just wants to grab a joint and will be in and out of my car quickly. We meet up and he could tell I was scared, so he introduces himself to make him seem less shady. He ended up being really nice and respectful, so I wasn't scared to keep selling to him afterwards. I dealt to him every week for 3 weeks and we would chat in my car for 10 to 15 minutes before he left. At the 3rd week he tells me he has a friend that owns a hookah bar and that he would love to treat me and my husband to a free hookah whenever we were available. I told him that I don't know how I would explain how I know him to my husband, but that it was really sweet of him to offer. He messages me every now and then to come visit and I always declined, but after my husband told me he wasn't attracted to me anymore, I decided to go to the hookah lounge and meet him. We chatted and smoked for a little while and it was just nice to have a distraction from all the fighting that had been going on at home. He told me about all the interesting hobbies he had and crazy stories about dates he had been on. It was just really entertaining and I hadn't had that much fun talking to someone in a while. I stopped by for an hour every day to exchange a joint for a hookah. Everything was just friendly. My husband gets suspicious of where I'm going every day and I lied and told him I went to see one of my girlfriends. One night, he goes through my phone and sees I've been messaging and meeting up with this guy. He is convinced I was sleeping with him since I felt the need to lie, but I reassure him that I was only meeting in public places and all we did was chat and smoke. He freaks out and calls this guy from my phone and starts screaming about how he's cheating with his wife. He got scared and hung up and my husband went after me. It didn't matter what I said, he was so upset that he didn't care for an explanation. Today, he tells our couples counselor that he no longer wants to work on our relationship and that he can never forgive me for what I did. I know the lying was really wrong of me to do and I truly feel bad, but I don't think what I did was unforgivable. There were no romantic or intimate exchanges, everything was innocent. Nevertheless, I know it was really shady for me to do and I've told him that I will cut this guy off. I want to do whatever I can to reconcile, but he keeps saying there is no chance and his feelings for me are dead. What advice would you give me in this situation? Next story 2. I have just ended things with my boyfriend. Have I been gaslit? Have I made a mistake? So me and my ex-boyfriend had been together for just over 4 years. Things were absolutely amazing in the beginning. I felt so loved and special and fell really hard for him. After about 6 months or so I noticed he'd go very silly and moody and be cold with me. I had no idea why and I thought he'd gone off me. He'd tell me that he hadn't and he was sorry for being moody. Sometimes he's just a moody guy. Then it started to get worse, everything would be good and then he'd just fly off the rails at me over such small things or be rude or dismissive of the things I do for him. For example, I'd cook dinner, make the table and put the food out for him. Then he'd come downstairs about 10 minutes later, not say a word to me and take his plate upstairs to eat. I confronted him about his behavior and said I didn't understand where it was coming from or what I'd done. He then opened up to me and said he was really struggling with anxiety over something that happened years ago. I won't say what on here, but it seemed to be really affecting him. The more I tried to help, the more I felt pushed away at times. He'd be really snappy with me, tell me I'm too sensitive, and if I cried he'd question why I was crying again. There had been nights where I'd cry myself to sleep next to him and he'd just turn the opposite way and ignore me. I spoke to him about this and he seemed to stop and be much more attentive. Then other things happened. We were shopping in the supermarket and I asked him to grab me something to go in a meal deal. He said he didn't want a meal deal and then threw all of the food on the floor and walked off. I was in complete shock and was really embarrassed. People were staring at me and I didn't know what to do. So I gathered the food and paid for it. When I got in the car he was red in the face with anger and shaking. I felt scared and asked him what that was all about. He said I'd asked him stupid questions and tried to belittle him. It was very strange. He then said he didn't want to spend the weekend together anymore and would take me home. I started crying and he then said how sorry he was and that he was struggling mentally. That was about 2 years ago. Then for my 30th birthday last year we went to Devon to go surfing. We parked up and left the valuables in the car and I packed towels, water, and sun cream in my bag. He told me to leave the bag and he'd come back to get it. I said I wanted to take it to save the hassle. I thought he was fine and was just walking ahead of me. When we got to the beach he started shouting at me and called me a stupid for bringing the bag and not listening to him. I didn't get it because it had no valuables in, but he said he would have to watch the bag now and wouldn't be able to enjoy his day, going on about how stupid and naive I am. He did apologize afterwards, but it's not how I envisioned my birthday going. Then we went out for dinner, he didn't say a word to me and I paid for it with the birthday money from my parents. After that things went back to him being nice to me again. Until my nana died. I was very close to her and was devastated when she passed. He said he would be round the next day but didn't say a time. A friend called and asked if I wanted to go for lunch to keep busy. I texted my boyfriend and he didn't reply, so I called him. He said he was busy and he'd be round a lot quicker if I stopped pestering him. He then told me not to make out like he was the bad guy and then decided I'd annoyed him too much and he wasn't coming round anymore. I was absolutely crushed. I couldn't breathe. But I somehow managed to carry on with the relationship because I couldn't deal with more loss at that time. A few more incidents like this happened, but overall he was there for me and was a good boyfriend. Fast forward to my birthday this year. We'd been wanting to do a road trip around France and decided to do it this year around my birthday in June. I ended up planning the whole route and sorting out all the accommodation with little to no input from him. I decided that didn't matter and was happy it was booked and we were going away. I asked him what he was getting me for my birthday as a bit of a joke and he told me nothing. I thought he was joking, so I left it. Then on the morning of my birthday I opened my cards from my friends and family and asked for his. He said he'd already told me he wasn't getting me anything. I was upset but told him he could make it up to me with a lovely day. But the whole day he was acting like a brat. He wouldn't speak to me, kept asking if we could go back to the Airbnb yet and saying how tired he was. We were in Annecy city center and it was beautiful. I was determined to enjoy my birthday regardless, so I suggested lunch and he reluctantly agreed. I ordered myself a pizza and some wine and decided to call my mum to thank her for the card. I made out I was having a nice time because I didn't want her to stress. He just sat there staring at me. I was so hurt I didn't speak to him for the rest of the day and then finally told him how I felt. He said why should he get me a present when it's his holiday? I laughed because I couldn't believe he'd said that. All of this stuff has been making me feel crap and I decided enough is enough, so I ended it on Saturday. He was absolutely devastated and was begging for another chance and said that his anxiety gets so bad sometimes and he just can't cope. He even spoke to my parents and apologized for things that have happened over the years. I'm so upset and wondered if I should give him another chance and try harder to help him with his mental health. I just don't know how much of these things can be blamed on anxiety. I've just been crushed repeatedly and I don't feel like I can take it anymore. But seeing him cry his eyes out trembling and apologizing has made me feel awful. Are the things that have happened actually that bad, or am I being dramatic? I know couples argue, but I don't feel like I've done anything wrong.